So I want to discuss Sergei Eisenstein and his masterpiece, unfinished masterpiece, Que Vida Mexico. Que Vida Mexico was a piece of work that was started in 1929 and was shot for about a year in Mexico continuously. By the end of production, Sergei Eisenstein had shot 250,000 linear feet of film, about 30 to 50 hours worth of film. He just kept the cameras rolling for as long as he could to be able to make sure that he had a huge amount of work to play with. This was done without thought to plot. It was done without thought to really anything other than aesthetics and of really trying to push what could be created aesthetically. This was done by essentially a brain trust put together by Upton Sinclair, who called in Sergei Eisenstein, built something called the Mexican Film Trust, gave him as much money as he wanted, and said, make a movie, which Sergei Eisenstein never finished because Sergei Eisenstein never stopped shooting. He was physically told to leave the country by Joseph Stalin. Stalin sent him a telegram saying, please come home. You've been away for so long. And he was never trusted again because of all the time he spent in the West, which he then worked very hard to regain Stalin's trust during the war. And because he wasn't really allowed to make films until later when he made a film in Serbia, but not in Serbia, in Siberia. So this film then was never finished. He was never allowed to edit it. And he actually had managed to get together about 50 cannons, 500 Mexican infantrymen, and had enlisted the Mexican army for free to work in his film before he was actually called back before being able to shoot that scene. This was going to be a tour de force for Sergei Eisenstein and would have really pushed the surrealist world. Why I feel like this film is important to discuss for culture, and discussing Mexican culture, is this film was critical in determining early Latin American cinema's aesthetics. He really introduced the montage to Mexican aesthetics, as well as really introducing how socialist film could be developed in South America. It's really hard to underrate how beautiful this film is. Really hard to overrate it. Like, it's so beautiful for what they're actually working with. The montages that are shown are explicit in what they're trying to do in an incredibly surreal manner. The scope of the film begins at the beginning of time and goes until the 1920s, which is crazy. We kind of see a communist revolution starting and seeing. This was seen as an attempt to actually adapt Karl Marx's Das Kapital and many of his different works. So we see kind of history moving through in a dialectic similar to what Marx thought was possible using Hegel's conception of dialectics. And this film was an attempt to actually adapt that theory, starting from the beginning of time of kind of a natural way of being, moving through into the revolution, and we see a communist revolution take form, but until finally seeing what the revolution would actually look like at the end of the film. Sergei Eisenstein was never able to finish this film, but it's, for what it is, it's a really beautiful attempt. And again, there was so much. Eventually this film was fully edited and sent out in 1979, over 40 years later. Eisenstein never lived to see it finished, and when he realized he would never be able to edit it because all the film was in California, he didn't get to take it home to the Soviet Union. It was just left in California and just kind of, I think the Museum of Modern Art got their hands on it in California, and they did an exchange with the Soviet Union, almost like a hostage exchange, where they sent them where the Soviet Union sent 3 films that had never been seen in the West before to them in exchange for Que Viva Mexico. A strange hostage exchange took place between the Museum of Modern Art and the Soviet government in the 1960s. And 10 years later, they finally released Que Viva Mexico. So this is just a landmark film for Latin American cinema. And again, just completely changed the aesthetics. The use of montage was huge in how people saw that and how people used that particular tool, as well as it really again, pieces of this film were shown over time. Like, there's little short films made of the 50 hours he shot, and a full film was attempted to be edited 40 years later, but we'll never really know what this film was supposed to be. Again, there was 50 hours, and it's an hour and a half movie that was put out. But the short amounts that were shown at the time just changed everything and really cemented Sergei Eisenstein within Latin America as a surrealist master. Yes, again, so important. And Sergei Eisenstein was a genius.